hello, welcome or welcome back. My name is Yaneli, and today we're going to be talking about Mooncat's Remedy collection. Now, this collection consists of 9 polishes, 5 of which are thermals, and 4 that are shimmers. As a disclaimer, this collection was sent to me by Mooncat. I was given this collection because Mooncat wanted me to create an application video of one of the polishes within the collection, and I was commissioned for it, so there was monetary exchange with it. However, that video is solely for Mooncat social platforms and not related at all to what I'm doing here on YouTube in this swatch and review. Now, the polish that they commissioned me for is to swatch dewpearls, and in their request, I had to swatch dewpearls the way that they wanted, which was to use the Getting Even nail primer and then do 3 coats. Typically in my swatches, I don't do any creme base. I usually do peel off base coat just to help me remove the polish quicker as I do swatches, as I feel that doing that gives a better representation on how the opacity is for a polish and what coats gives what full coverage. Now, this collection is a little pricey. I'll have more thoughts on that near the end of the video. But right now, the entire collection is $138 USD. The thermals now cost $18 and the shimmers are now $17 USD. As always, I will have comparisons and my final thoughts near the end of the video. And with that, let's get into swatches. Up first, we have Murraya's Melody, and this is a pastel yellow shifty shimmer that goes from yellow shimmers to green shimmers, and at certain angles, it can shift to a pinky type of look. So on the first coat, I was rather shocked at how sheer it is. Mooncat does say that this polish is intentionally sheer, meaning I'm not going to fight it. Like, I'm not going to try my darnest to get full coverage since it's made intentionally to be sheer. But when they said it was intentionally sheer, I didn't think it would be like a topper almost on the first coat. On the second coat, it did provide a little bit more coverage, however, the sheerness factor is still there. If you want this polish to be more full coverage, I definitely recommend applying a cream base polish like Mooncat's Getting Even nail primer or Hollow Taco's pink smoothing base. Or what you can do is grab a similar pastel yellow creme polish and then apply Murraya's Melody on top as a topper of sorts. And then for shits and giggles, I decided to go in with a third coat, just curious on how it built up, because the second coat did provide decent coverage for something intentionally sheer, but the third coat really provided that coverage. Being told it's intentionally sheer but like almost giving me full coverage on the third coat is pretty nice. Overall, this polish does provide kind of like a chromy pearlescent look to it, so I got curious on how this would look over black, a pastel yellow, and white. So over white, it definitely gives more of a chromy pearlescent type of look. Over a pastel yellow, it's just the color of the pastel creme that I chose here, and it's more saturated and it still gives off a pearlescent look. Over black is where you can see the green shimmers more prominently. And yeah, this is a polish that would be a great layer option to create different combos. So moving on to Ribbit, and this is what I consider a light green, almost wanting to be lime green polish with really fine blue shimmer going throughout. So I had a very hard time trying to decipher what this polish made me feel, and I think I've come to the conclusion that this type of green is very similar to the glow-in-the-dark green that we get from glow-in-the-dark polishes. Then that transpired into giving me a bioluminescence type of look. So overall, I'm really digging this color here. And when I mentioned it to Mooncat and how this one was my favorite of the collection, they told me that this one almost didn't make it in the collection itself. So the fact that this polish could have been cut off from the collection is kind of crazy. I'm glad they kept it though, because this one did become my favorite. So as you saw in the previous clips, the first coat was semi-sheer and did need an additional coat to provide coverage. So I did a second coat, and that gave me what I would consider good coverage, but not good enough to where I felt like I could still see some patchiness. So I went in with a third coat, and that gave me full coverage. And then with the third coat, I realized that within the fine shimmer, you can see your brush strokes, so be cautious of how you apply this polish. If brush strokes being visible are something that you don't like. And then because this was also a sheer polish, I wanted to see it layered on top of a white, a gray, and a black. Over white, it kind of looks like you took the yellow highlighter and just kind of scrubbed it on top of your white polish. And then over gray gave it more of a teal type of vibe to it and definitely made it look more creamy. And then over black, it's more blue leaning because the shimmers are blue, but even the base color looks blue, so kind of interesting. Here we have Jump Jump Bug, and this is a green to green thermal polish. There are no glitters, just plain Jane, kind of like a creme polish of sorts. However, I will specify that despite it being green to green, the greens are very different. One of the greens looks like a very yellow green, and then the other green is what you predominantly see in the bottle, which is that like teal, dusty type of green. So on the first coat, as I am applying it, because it's in the cold state due to the polish being fresh, it looks like I have full coverage. However, as it dries down and it transitions to the warm state, because I usually run warm, you can see that it is a little bit of patchiness going throughout. So I did go in with a second coat, and the second coat did give me full coverage in both the warm and the cold state. And after seeing it fully coverage and seeing it transition and whatnot, my immediate thought was that this reminded me of the Scooby-Doo mystery van with the similar colors. Overall, there's nothing much to say. Like, the transitioning of this polish is very pretty. I still like the green to green action. The greens are different enough to, for me, justify having this one. The formula is also very nice. It is thicker than the previous polishes we swatched because it's giving more of a luxurious creme type of vibe. So it having high coverage and it being workable is a big plus. Here we have Dewpearls, and this is a light blue polish with purple to pink to blue shimmers going throughout. So this is the one that Mooncat specifically commissioned me to swatch, and so my thoughts here are from that first time I swatched it, and I don't know when that swatch video will go up, but as you can see, the swatching here is very different. I personally like to swatch polishes without a creamy base on, so like the Getting Even nail primer or Hollow Taco's pink smoothing base, because I want to show you all how this polish looks on just the nail. Like, the only base coat I have is peel off base coat because I want to take these off as quickly as possible and move on to the next polish. So for me, without the addition of a creamy base coat, the first coat was rather sheer, and so I went in with a second coat, but it was still sheer and patchy, predominantly in the middle of the nail. So I did go in with a third coat, and I feel that a third coat definitely gave me that full coverage. Something else I noted here, along with the other fine shimmers and the other polishes, is that you do see your brush strokes. So if you don't like how those look, just be cautious of how you're applying the polish on the nail. I do believe those with longer or wider nails will need an additional coat or use a creme base coat to give you a more opaque look. And of course, I wanted to show how this polish looks over white, gray, and black. Over white, the blue is so light, it honestly almost looks like piss and snow, and then with a sparkle of blue shimmer in there. And then of course over gray, it looks more gray leaning, it gives it more of a dusty vibe to it. And over black, it loses its very icy frosty vibe. The blue becomes more vibrant and saturated, so it's giving a completely different aesthetic than how it is in the other two and alone. Up next, we have Flying Nimbus, and this is a sky blue to white thermal polish. There's no extra glitter or shimmers in here, so similar to Jump Jump Bug, it is a simple creme thermal polish. And something I noticed with this first coat is that it didn't transition completely like the other one did. I usually run warm, so the fact that this one kind of took a while reintroduced the note that Mooncat has as a disclaimer on that sometimes thermals take up to a couple of hours to activate the thermal dynamics of it. So be patient. You can force the thermal at extreme temperatures, not extreme to the point where like hot boiling water, but like, you know, using hot water that is still tolerable and then using cold tap water would still force the thermal change within these polishes. But if you don't see the polish change immediately, give it some time. It may need the polish to be shaking up a bit to get that thermal distribution going, just like how it did for me on the second coat. Before I applied the second coat, I did shake the nail polish bottle to see if that helps with anything, and I did notice that on the second coat, the thermal did occur and was seeing that white to blue transition. Overall, I really enjoy this polish. I think it's so cute. I've always wanted like a sky blue to white polish because it is reminiscent of a nice blue sky and then some fluffy clouds coming in the mix. I definitely think my sister would like this one, so I'm kind of looking forward to her visiting me and trying it out. She also has longer nails, so I think the thermal gradient will look absolutely beautiful on her nails. Up next, we have Koi Whiskers, and this is a pinky coral to pastel yellow thermal with a cute dusting of pink shimmers going throughout. Now, these shimmers, I literally mean a dusting of fine shimmer because these shimmers are so small. They're very demure, if you will. On the first coat, I got really good coverage, but again, similar to Jump Jump Bug and Flying Nimbus, it looks like full coverage on the first coat when in the cold state. As it dries down and acclimates to my body temperature, it warms up, leaving more of a patchy look with a pastel yellow color change. So I did go in with a second coat, and with the second coat I did get that nice even coverage. Like, the best way I can describe this formula of the thermals is a very luxurious creme formula. If you've ever bought a creme polish that you just absolutely love, that levels out nicely, it doesn't become tacky or gummy when you apply it on the nail. It's just very easy to work with, but it is that nice high coverage. This is how I would describe the thermal polishes within this collection so far. Yeah, overall, I really enjoy this one as well. I enjoy the transitional colors. They're very reminiscent of those Trix yogurts where the two colors on each side. Now I want some of those. Moving on to another pinky coral, we have Momo Yuyake, and this is, again, a pinky coral polish, but I fear it leans a little closer to hot pink than pinky coral. And this one has orange to pink shimmers going throughout. On the first coat, I was very taken aback with how great of coverage it provided. Like, a shimmery polish gave me really good coverage on the first coat. What is this revelation? But I did not let the first coat fool me. I know if I look deep enough, there will be some imperfections, and to cover myself more, I went ahead and did a second coat, and now with certainty I can say I have full coverage and I have better color payout. I feel like the hot pink / pinky coral is more up in your face and saturated, whereas it wasn't as much in the first coat. Overall, I find this one to be a surprising fave because I don't usually lean towards these hot pink or pinky coral polishes. I tend to enjoy them in theory, but usually when placed on my nail, it's not something that I gravitate toward. But this one kept making me want to keep staring at my nail, which is very different than how I normally feel with these type of shades. And of course, I did want to show this polish over a white, a gray, and a black base. Over white, it looks like you took the pink highlighter this time and decided to scribble on top of the white polish. Over gray, it's kind of giving a little bit of a purple hue to it, kind of liking it a lot over gray. And of course, over black, it's giving more of a multichrome type of vibe. It's not like legit multichrome, of course, but it just transitions and shifts so seamlessly like a multichrome over black that it eludes that. Now, if the other one wasn't hot pink enough, here we have Sakura Serenade, and this one is vibrant hot pink on your nails. It is a pink to pink thermal with a blue shimmer going throughout. Now, this shimmer is a little bit more on the subtle side, similar to Momo Yuyake, and it takes a certain position of the light source for you to get it. Otherwise, from a distance, you kind of don't really see the blue shimmer so much. So the pink to pink thermal is a one very hot pink, and then it transitions into a bubblegum pink. So interestingly enough, this is the only thermal with a special note similar to ribbit and dewpearls, where mooncat recommends that you do 3 coats. So that's what we'll do here. On the first coat, as you saw, it wasn't 100% full coverage, but it still had that full coverage vibe that the other thermals provided. But of course, as it transitions into a warmer state, you will see the patchiness more. Second coat definitely provided that full coverage for me, but I do want to honor Mooncat's note and go ahead with a 3rd coat. And then with a 3rd coat, of course, like, you have full coverage. I am curious to see this on longer nails and how it differs between the 2nd coat and the 3rd coat, and if there's much of a difference in terms of coverage. Just like the others that contain shimmers, you will see the brush strokes within the shimmers. You usually only see them when the light source hits just right. Otherwise, it's kind of like you're nitpicking to see the brush strokes, but again, just want to inform you of what I noticed as I was playing around with these polishes. Overall, this is a very cutesy polish, you know, pink to pink, hot pink, bubblegum pink. However, for me, I don't know if I enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Momo Yuyake, but it's still pretty fun to look at. So next up we have melonberry, and this is a purple to pink thermal, no glitters, just a simple like creme-like finish. And I was running cold during this swatching portion of the video. I had the ceiling fan on and I also had my air purifier going, so a lot of cold wind coming in the mix, and so you predominantly only saw the cold state as I swatched this polish. I did need 2 coats to get full coverage, which is pretty typical in this collection, seeing how the other thermals, with the exception of Sakura Serenade, only needing 2 coats. Overall, I really enjoy this transition. Like, it's pink and purple. You can't go wrong with pink and purple, right? With this polish, I actually got to experience the self-leveling that these formulas have. So immediately after applying the 2nd coat, I accidentally bunked my thumb onto my acetone bottle. It obviously took some polish out with it. I needed to decide whether I wanted to redo that swatch portion or just put another coat on, since it was still relatively fresh, and just kind of hope that it would level out on its own. I went ahead and did another coat on top while it was still fresh, and the way that this system just kind of leveled out within itself, like, you don't even see when I would do the wiggle action of the 2nd coat that this nail was bunked and the polish was kind of ruined. So the leveling system of this formula is top notch in my opinion. Moving on to comparisons. Up first, for Murraya's Melody, I have Mooncat's Banquet of Breadcrumbs and Mooncat's Witch Hazel. I initially wasn't going to compare these two because in my mind, like, they're very distinctly different. They're not at all yellow, but I kept seeing it pop up on Reddit and on Instagram that people wanted to see how these compare, and so I decided last minute to include this in here. But my opinion still stands. Like, I don't think these are at all anywhere near each other. So, and I don't have Dimitri's Harvest, so unfortunately I can't do a comparison for that, but I'm sure someone out there has it and can do that comparison for us. For Ribbit, I wanted to see how it looks next to Mooncat's Plankton, because they all have that same type of vibe for the green, but of course in the comparisons here you can see they are very different, with Ribbit being very pastel almost compared to the other two. For Jump Jump Bug, I want to compare it to Hollow Taco's Funny Feeling, which is another thermal, and it has that aqua to almost that same lime green transitioning. However, it does have glitter in the mix, so it's not exact to Jump Jump Bug. And then to the right is Mooncat's Devil's Ivy, and I mainly wanted to compare it for color-wise reasons to see how it looked compared to Jump Jump Bug's Cold State color. These next comparisons are more so color based because I don't have any other thermals to compare it to, so I'm just trying to match what each warm and cold state color can compare to. So in here I have Hollow Taco's Matcha Maker compared to Hollow Taco's Here for the Payday, and as you can see they are very different. And then I wanted to compare how Jump Jump Bug's cold state colors compared to Holo Taco's Touch Grass and Holo Taco's Time After Time. And again, there's that subtle difference there. The other colors that I'm comparing Jump Jump Bug with are just cremes. They're not thermal, so you're not going to get that thermal shift. For dewpearls, I wanted to see how it compared to Mooncat's Sabertooth and Mooncat's Ragdoll, as they're all frosty blues with blue shimmers in. However, as you can see here, Sabertooth and Ragdoll are more of that sky blue type of shade, and dewpearls has more of a pastel aqua color. Then I thought of comparing dewpearls to somewhat more aquaish blues, and this is Holo Taco's Happily Ever Aqua and Mooncat's Full Scream Ahead. I think Mooncat's Full Scream Ahead, because of the green minty shimmer that they have, leans slightly closer than Holo Taco's does, but still not exacts. And then I try to compare it to Holo Taco's Vitamin Glow and Holo Taco's Moon Lagoon. Moon Lagoon leans a little bit more green, especially when compared to dewpearls, as dewpearls here now looks more blue, but Vitamin Glow now looks more purpley leaning, so not exacts. For Flying Nimbus, I didn't really have any thermal similar to this one, so I'm just comparing the cold state and the warm state colors to what colors I perceive as similar. And in the first one here, we have Holo Taco's Not Milky White and Island Pea Soulmate, which is more of a flesh creme type of color, so not exacts. And then I thought of comparing the in-between transition color with Holo Taco's Skipping Stones and Holo Taco's Too Good to Be Blue. And they kind of look very similar, like especially with it transitioning midway here, but again, not thermals, so not exacts. And then I thought of comparing Flying Nimbus's cold color state with Holo Taco's Scientific and Holo Taco's Pep Blue, but neither of them compared to how it looks in the cold state, and of course formulation wise neither of them are thermals. For Koi Whiskers, I decided to compare it to Holo Taco's Rage Bait, which ironically have very similar transitional colors, except Holo Taco's Rage Bait is more orange versus pale yellow, and in the cold state it's more of this fuchsia or hot pink color compared to a pinky coral. And then next to it I have Holo Taco's The Flores Guava, just to compare how it looks next to Koi Whiskers in the cold state. For Momo Yuyake, I thought of comparing it next to Mooncat's Flight of the Monarchs and Mooncat's Witch Hazel, predominantly because of the orange specks that it has going on, and in my mind I thought they were more pink leaning, but of course they're not, so not exacts. And then I thought of comparing it next to Mooncat's Plumps for Harvest Moon and Mooncat's Fleur Sauvage, because again they have that corally colors with the exception of Poems, which is more of a vibrant orange with pink shimmers, and Fleur Sauvage is that somewhat pink coral as well, but not exacts. Very close, but not exacts. And then sticking with a theme of pink and orange shimmers of sorts, I decided to compare it to Island Pea's Pink Lemonade and Island Pea's Sweet Tooth. Of course, on the nail, you can definitely see the differences here, especially in color payout and the type of shimmer going throughout. So not exacts, but I do think that Sweet Tooth paired with Momo Yuyake make a great combo. For Sakura Serenade, I have here Holo Taco's Deeply Superficial, which is another pink to pink thermal. However, despite being pink to pink, the shades of pink are very different, and Holo Taco's does have flakies in the mix. And then I decided to compare it next to Holo Taco's Pop Rocker, which is a bubblegum pink to me with the blue shimmers. I thought maybe it would compare to the warm state of Sakura Serenade, but they are very different in that regard, as Sakura Serenade is a lighter pink, whereas Holo Taco's Thermal is more of a pale pink, and Pop Rocker, of course, formulation wise is very different. And of course I had to compare Sakura Serenade next to Mooncat's Merkins, as by name they're technically both hot pinks with blue shimmers going throughout. However, they are very different, as Merkin looks a little bit fuchsia-y compared to Sakura Serenade. And then here I have Island Pea's Gummy Bear, which is a pink jelly with scattered hollow, so not exacts in this regard. For melonberry, I decided to compare it next to Mooncat's After the Rain, as they kind of have similar purples in the bottle, but of course After the Rain is a different formula. And then I have here Holo Taco's Guilty Pleasure, which is their version of a pink to purple thermal polish. However, formula wise they're very different, color wise they're very different, so not exacts in that regard. And then I have here Holo Taco's Blush Money as the pink to kind of show how it compares next to the pink that melonberry transitions to. And next to that I have Holo Taco's Wild Child, just to compare how that purple pairs to the cold state of melonberry. So of course not exacts, because obviously different formula and colors as well, so just a fun comparison here. And that concludes the swatch and comparisons portion of this video. Please let me know your thoughts on this collection. Will you continue to purchase Mooncat, or with the price increase, have things halted for a moment here, let me know in the comments below and we'll talk about it. So for me, I really like the variation that we have here. I know Mooncat is notorious for including similar shades within this collection, but I do enjoy that we have different types of finishes and color palettes of sorts. So we have thermals, we have pastel-y colors, and then we also have vivid colors, as well as shifty shimmers. I do wish that we would get more glittery polishes from Mooncat, not just shimmers. I feel like shimmers are kind of their main component. And then I also wish Mooncat didn't release 9-piece collections. Oh my god. It is a hassle to swatch 9 polishes, but also as a nail enthusiast, I find it so much easier when brands release a 5-piece collection. Just 5 seems like that nice number. It's perfect for Skittles and it's just the right amount of polish that one needs. I feel like 9 is kind of excessive, especially with this price increase and everything around us kind of increasing in price. Like, as someone who receives the PR, I am immensely grateful. I did have to pitch myself to be in PR. Like, it wasn't that they came to me. Like, I put myself out there and I pitched to Mooncat in hopes of working with them and being on their PR list. However, as a consumer, I am having a hard time justifying the prices for nail polish. Not just Mooncat, various other brands are increasing their prices, and I've already set a hard no buy for me this year because let's just say the credit statements previous years were a little high and living paycheck to paycheck is not the vibe, right? So all I could offer is that you consider your finances, you consider your positions, and shop in moderation and with mindfulness. If the price increase is of no concern to you whatsoever, honestly, I am so happy for you because I wish to have that luxury, like to just buy things and not worry about the price point. I'm hoping that sometime in my life that I can get to that point where the price tag isn't as scary as it is right now. And then I guess this is tea, but there's some stuff going on in the Reddit Lacqueristas subreddit because someone noticed that the wording on Mooncat's website, how it used to state 10% of proceeds would be going to Koneko Cafe, now says something different. I have not personally gone in and sleuthed myself. This is all speculation. I am only as involved in the subreddit as I have time to be, but this person did reach out to Mooncat and they did reach out to Koneko Cafe to see what these proceeds are, and essentially things were discovered. So I really implore you to check out the subreddit for useful information and be in the known of what things are going on. Like, I think at this point it's kind of has spiraled a little bit to where people are creating scenarios that haven't been proven yet. So until Mooncat and Koneko Cat say an official statement of what their relationship is, how the proceeds actually work from what we consumers buy to then going to Koneko Cat and being dispersed there, and what actual amount and or percentage is now being taken from orders to those proceeds. Again, I implore you to look into it yourself. I'll link it down in the description and you can make your own decisions from then. And with that, don't forget to follow me on my Instagram. I usually post nail art over there that doesn't get uploaded here on YouTube, so you'll be the first to know of what nail art looks. I tend to do on Instagram, and sometimes I share my life on Instagram stories. And then if you're interested in watching other Mooncat swatches, click over here and it'll take you to a playlist of other Mooncat swatches I've done. If you're interested in seeing other brand polishes, right now it's only Island Pea, Hollow Taco, and Mooncat because those are the ones I get PR from. Because again, I'm not purchasing polish. I'm on a hard no buy and I want to commit. So if you want to see what other swatches for Hollow Taco and Island Pea look like, click on my profile over here and it'll take you to my YouTube channel. And with that, thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me. Again, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section so we can talk about it. And I'll see you next time. Bye.